All righty, all righty, all right. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. My 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. Going to try to get it done in 98 days. That's probably not going to happen, but I will get it done before the beginning of the new season, which starts September 10th against those Dallas Cowboys. And we find ourselves up the 2005 season, which just happened to be the 81st season in the history of the New York Giants. 81st season in the history of the Giants. 86th season in the history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920. Giants started in 1925. Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. And the 2005 season wound up being a very productive season for the Giants. A huge turnaround from the year before. The year before, 2004, obviously, it was, first year of Tom Coughlin. They made the trade during the draft to traded. We took Phillip Rivers. We traded with the San Diego Chargers. We acquired Eli Manning. Cost us a couple other picks as well too. One of them was in this draft was a couple of them were in this draft. One of them was a first rounder. The Chargers wound up taking Sean Merriman, who wound up being a very good player for them. But as we all know, it cost you some players to move up from 4 to 1. Of course, the Giants a few players, but I think with the results the Giants got, gaining 2 Super Bowls at the hands of Eli Manning, I think it was certainly well worth it. Now, this would be there was only this is the only time in Giants history. Now, hopefully, Brian Daboll and company smash this to smithereens. But however, this is the only time in the history of the New York Football Giants that we're starting where the Giants would go to the playoffs 4 straight years: 2005, 6, 7, and 8. Never been done before. Giants went to the championship game, playoffs, championship game, 33, 34, and 35. And then, of course, with Bill Parcells, they went to the playoffs / Super Bowl, right, in 84, 85, 86. But it never been done 4 times. And now it's going to start as the first season. With the New York Giants going to the playoffs 4 straight times. Now, of course, the outcome of the playoffs, was I mean, we'll go a little more in depth and detail over it, but I was just like in the twilight zone. And this one, I was just like, we're home. Carolina was a very good team, and I was just like, when's the point where we start moving the ball? Where's the point where we get some yard? I mean, it was just. Whew. I think Jeremy Shockey mentioned it best after the game was over. I think because it was in the locker room. I don't know who asked him the question, who was talking to him, whatever, but he said something along the lines like Carolina seemed to know everything that we were going to do. They knew every play. And every play that the Giants ran on offense. And I believe it's right. That's if you look at the game, it's like the Giants did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But anyway, we'll go more into that in a little bit. But it was the Giants went from 6-10 to the playoffs. It was, a great turnaround season for the Giants. They kind of, I guess, in a way, they pulled the plug on the 2004 season. The Giants were 5-2, and then they had 2 tough, close losses with Kurt Warner as the quarterback, future Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner. And the Giants kind of pretty much like pulled the plug on the season in a way. They put the rookie quarterback Eli Manning out there, and the Giants, when Eli took over, the Giants were 5-4. And he would lose his first 6 games, and they were, before you know it, they were from 5-4. They were 5-10, and finally they won the final game of the season against the Dallas Cowboys to finish the season 6-10. But the experience that he got from those 7 games was very valuable, and I'm sure he carried a lot of that into this season here in 2005 because it really turned around. The Giants, so they had the weapons. They started getting the offensive line right. They had, I believe, all the guys. They didn't start. I think like Soybert, but I mean, they had the guys were there. On the offensive line, they had the weapons. This is they only had 4 picks, but 3 out of 4 picks in this draft were very, very good. So let's start off with the preseason here for the New York Giants. How did the Giants do? Pretty good. Pretty good. First game was on Saturday, August 13th against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland Browns Stadium. The Giants would lose a tough one, 17-14. Once again, it's just preseason. The next game against, the Carolina Panthers, who they would face in the playoffs, let's see, Giant Stadium on August 20th, Saturday, August 20th against Carolina. The Giants would win 27-21. Once again, just preseason. Then the Giants would be the home team against the New York Jets. So on Friday, August 26th, the Giants would win a tight one, 15-14. Then the final game of preseason on Thursday, September 1st, at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. The Giants would rout the Patriots once again. Just preseason, but the Giants won 27-3. So the Giants finished the preseason, on a high note, right? With a record of 3-1. So let's. What does Wikipedia have to say here about the New York Giants? The 2005 New York Giants season was the franchise's 81st season in the history of the National Football League. The Giants finished the regular season with a record of 11 wins and 5 losses. Now, remember, they were 6-10 the year before. So, fantastic turnaround. And they came in first place in the NFC East. However, they would be shut out at home by the Carolina Panthers in the wild card round of the playoffs. The offseason. In the 2005 offseason, the Giants acquired former Steelers wide receiver Plaxico Burress. See, all the pieces started, for the 2007 run. All the pieces started coming together, right? And they got, and this wound up being huge as well. They also wind up getting former Jets offensive tackle Kareem McKenzie. Once again, huge. And former Redskins linebacker, once again, huge, Antonio Pierce. You can't overemphasize how huge these 3 dudes were to the Giants, becoming a formidable team. Let me tell you what, Antonio Pierce, Plaxico Burress, Kareem McKenzie, wow. Plus the guys they got in the draft too. Wow, which we're going to go over in just a minute. I mean, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And then, of course, the year before we got Eli Manning. Whew. Major acquisitions here. Let me tell you what. Also, during the 2005 draft, the Giants used their pick. Well, I'm not going to go over the drafts here. I'll go over the undrafted free agents of note that some of the bigger guys. One of them they wound up picking was because I'm going to go over the draft picks, but the undrafted free agents. One of them was Chase Blackburn. Now unheralded, whatever, but very, very, huge. He had a big interception in Super Bowl 46 after the 2011 season. He going up against Gronk, he pulled in one. The Giants also got James Butler, a safety from Georgia Tech, Ryan Grant, a running back from Notre Dame, Cameron Wake, they got a linebacker from Penn State, undrafted free agents that they wind up having. But so let's go over the draft, shall we? They also had Pro Bowlers, where we have 5 Pro Bowlers. They had Tiki Barber, Jeremy Shockey, Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, and David Tyree as a special teamer. Now, this would be the second of 3 consecutive 2,000 all-purpose yard seasons for Tiki Barber. Right, 2004, 2005, 2006, 3 consecutive over 2,000 yard seasons for Tiki Barber. Then after 2006, unfortunately, he retired. If he just could have hung around for one more season, he would have wound up with another 1,000, 1,500 yards if he could have stayed healthy, maybe even 2,000. Who knows? All right. And he would have got himself a Super Bowl ring. And quite possibly, I mean, if he could, he would have, if he could have played one more season and just say had 1,500 all-purpose yards, he would have had over 17,000 rushing and receiving yards. He would have had himself a Super Bowl victory, Super Bowl ring. 17,000 yards. It would be kind of tough to keep him out of the Hall of Fame, but especially with a Super Bowl win. But it is what it is. So, I mean, I said, once again, this was a huge season for the New York Giants. All right. So let me pop this up here. I said, I mean, they only had 4 picks, but 3 out of these 4 picks that they had were, really, really just solid, unbelievable picks. All right, so I'm going to go over here first because they didn't have a first round pick because they traded it away to the San Diego Chargers. So they had pick number 12 in the first round. They traded it away. I mean, they had to trade away Phillip Rivers. They traded away their 2004 third round pick. Then they traded away their 2005 first round pick and their 2005 fifth round pick. So they had to give up 4 picks to get Eli Manning. So with the Giants' first round selection this year, which went to the Chargers took Sean Merriman, who wound up being a very good football player for the Chargers. But once again, to move up from 4 to 1 to get the quarterback that Ernie Accorsi felt right for the New York Giants, I think it turned out for the best for the New York Giants. You can't argue. Although, I mean, once again, I mean, this is one of the the fewer times I certainly can't go back every year by year, but the top 3 quarterbacks. I mean, if you add up all of their years of playing experience, you come close to almost 50 years. I mean, between Phillip Rivers, I mean, if the Giants wind up with Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, or Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, they would have had some successful seasons. Hard to say if they would have won a Super Bowl with Phillip Rivers or Ben Roethlisberger, but they would have, without question, whether they wound up with Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, or Ben Roethlisberger, without question, they would have had some successful seasons, meaning playoff seasons. Now, once again, would Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers taking the Giants to the promised land 2 times like Eli Manning did? Hard to say, because in 2011, Eli Manning put the team on his back in the playoffs and said, guys, we're winning the Super Bowl. Just get on my back, guys. We're going this way. The Super Bowl is but without question, I mean, if they wound up with Phillip Rivers or Ben Roethlisberger, they still would have had some very successful seasons. So the Giants, their first round selection, they did not have, but to move up from 4 to 1 to get the quarterback, Ernie Accorsi felt was right for the New York Giants. Right, they had to give away their first round selection. So. But in the second round, the New York Giants, and this wound up being huge for the New York Giants, Corey Webster. All right. The cornerback from LSU. I mean, he wound up, he played 9 seasons in the NFL. He had some struggles early on. He wasn't necessarily he played in some games. 2005, he only started in 2 games. 2006, he started in 10 games. 2007, he played in 14 games, only started in 3. But once 2008 rolled around, he was the man. He started in a lot of games from 2008 to 2012 for the Giants. So Corey Webster was 2007. I know he as I said, he didn't start a lot. Okay, but as time would go on, he became very, very valuable to the Giants, and especially in 2011, he would start and play in all 16 games for the Giants in 2011, and he got himself 2 Super Bowl rings. So Corey Webster, second round pick for the New York Giants, fantastic pick from LSU, number 43 overall. So that was the first. outstanding pick that the Giants had. The second outstanding pick that the Giants had, let's go to the third round. With pick number 74 overall, the Giants took Justin Tuck. Another absolutely fantastic pick. Justin played 11 seasons. A couple of them wound up being with the Raiders, but how many were with the Raiders? The final two with the Raiders, but Justin hung around long enough. The force that he wound up becoming, on that offense, on that defensive line for the Giants was, and he's still the only player, I think, in NFL Super Bowl history with multiple sacks in multiple Super Bowls. So when the game was big, he was huge. He was huge. Third round pick for the New York Giants. What a pick he was. You can't underestimate or overstate, however you want to say it, the value, that he, for third round pick. Whew, fantastic. Now, once again, he played from 2005, the Giants, until 2013. Got himself 2 Super Bowl rings. Where'd he go? He wound up with, what is it? So he had 16 and a half sacks for the Giants, career sacks. 1, 2. He had 4 seasons with the Giants. We had multiple double-digit sacks. But, of course, 2005 and 2006, he only started 1 game for the Giants. And actually in 2007, he played in all 16 games, but he only started in 2 of them. So, basically his first 3 seasons, he started in 3 regular season games for the Giants. So, actually in 2007, he had 10 sacks. He only started in 2 games. He played in all 16, only started in 2. So he wasn't even a starter, and he had 10 sacks. Just goes to show you how good he was. All right, so that would be our second phenomenal pick. Our pick in the 4th round was almost just as phenomenal. Okay, 4th round pick number 110. Guy by the name of Brandon Jacobs. This is one of the all-time, especially, if they could have had their first round selection and knocked that out of the park, this would be one of the best drafts in the history of the Giants, period. If they had taken Sean Merriman in the first round, if they had their pick, right? If they had Sean Merriman, Corey Webster, Justin Tuck, and Brandon Jacobs, this would have been one of the greatest drafts the Giants have ever had. But they didn't have their, obviously their first round selection, so that's what brings it down a little bit. But they only had 4 picks, but 3 out of the 4 were, they knocked it out of the park. Brandon Jacobs, he played 9 seasons running back from Southern Illinois. Once again, good for him. He obviously, after 2011, he played 1 season with San Francisco. Then he came back in 2013 and finished up his career with the Giants, and he retired as a Giant. Good for him. Now, once again, he had he hung around from 2005 to 2011, so he got himself 2 Super Bowl rings. Good job, Brandon. Good job. He had back-to-back 1,000 yards seasons. 2007, he had 1,009 rushing yards. 2008, he had 1,089 rushing yards. 2009, he had 835. 2010, he had 823. So he had some, obviously he had some nice seasons. Was it 2007? He averaged 5 yards a carry. 2008, he averaged 5 yards a carry. 2010, he averaged 5.6 yards a carry. So he had some good seasons. One of the problems that he had was, he just ran so hard. His first, 2007, he only started played in 11 games. He started 9 games for the Giants, and he had over 1,000 yards rushing. Imagine if he, one of his problems was, and it is what, you run the way he runs, so violent, you're going to hurt other players, but you're going to get hurt as well too. And that's what happened to him on occasion. He would wind up missing some time, a game here, a game there, or whatever, because it was just, getting, running so hard. There were times you would just see him run finish a run somebody over or whatever, get up, and you could just see something was wrong, But that's what it was. You run as violent as he does. Unfortunately, things like that happen, but we owe that man a lot. I mean, he was, he set the tone in the championship game against Green Bay. They handed the ball off to him at the first play. I mean, he just, he just run guys over. It was just, he set the tone in that frigid game at Lambeau Field. Absolutely phenomenal. All right, so let's go. So I'm getting a little carried away here. I'm talking about the 2007 championship game. But all right, so the 2005, well, one of them, and in the Giants' fifth round, the Giants traded their fifth round selection away to the Chargers for, when they acquired Eli Manning. But the Chargers wound up trading away to the Buccaneers, who wound up trading away to the Rams. So the Rams wound up taking Jerome Collins with the Giants' fifth round selection in the 2005 draft. So the Giants didn't have a fifth round. The Giants gave up 2 firsts, a third, and a fifth to get Eli Manning. So this is their fifth. This is their fifth. This is to be their fourth and final pick that they traded away to the Chargers to get Eli Manning. So after this pick here, all right, the Giants were all square, all right, with the Chargers. So in this, the Giants had a 6th round selection, and where we at? The Giants wound up taking Eric Moore. Now let's see, he played 6 seasons. He was a defensive end, but let's see here. He played 2005 with the Giants. I guess maybe a special teamer. I'm not really remembering much of him. He played in 8 games for the Giants in 2005. He didn't start any games, but in 2006, he wound up with New Orleans and St. Louis. 2007, 2008, he was with St. Louis, the Rams. And then in 2010 and 2011, he wound up with New England. So oddly enough, on 2011, he only played 2 games in 2011. So I'm not even sure if he was on the roster in 2011 when New England wound up playing the Giants. I don't know. So he played 2 games for New England. But, 6th round pick. He played, from 2005 to 2011. So he wound up playing a 6-year career, 6th round pick. Right? It is what it is. All right, but then in the 7th round pick, the Giants did not have. And let's figure that out. What happened there? The Giants traded away. Oh, okay. The Giants would receive Jason Whittle for from the Buccaneers. For the Giants, let's see here. Okay, the Giants traded away 2 picks to the Buccaneers to get Jason Whittle. One of those picks was the Giants' 2005 7th round selection, with the Buccaneers selected Paris Warren. Not sure who that is, but that's who they selected. And the Giants also traded away their 2 next season's 6th round selection, which wound up being Bruce Gradkowski. Not Gronk, but Bruce Gradkowski. Not Gronkowski, but Gradkowski. I'm not sure, once again, who he is. So the Giants traded away 2 selections to get Jason Whittle, who was an offensive lineman. So they traded away 1 pick this year and 1 pick in 2006 as well. And then the Giants, they did not have, there was no compensatory picks or nothing. No. So that's why the Giants only had one with 4 picks. But as I said, 3 out of those 4 picks that the Giants wound up having were just really, really good. You can't underestimate how good a couple of those picks were. The 3 of those picks. What's up, Teddy? You can't underestimate that at all. Jeremy Shockey is my all-time favorite, greatest sleeper of a Giant. I've been a Phillip Rivers playoff. I've been to a playoff. Oh, well, there you go. There you go. I have not. But I'll tell you what, that guy he played for a long, long time, and I think he's having his 10th child. I think I read a report. He had 9. I think they're having their 10th child. Him and his wife are having a 10th child. But all right, so let's see here. So let's go to the Giants and let's go game by game for the New York Giants. All right, as I said, they wound up with a record of 11-5. I mean, they were 6-10 the year before to turn it around to 11-5. I said, but it's not only the Eli Manning, the experience that he got the year before. Let's see, what was Eli? Eli, obviously, because the streak started, right? Eli played in all those games in a row. Started, he played the final 7 games of the 2004 season. Then, of course, that would continue over into the 2005 season, which we're at. He played all 16 games at a record of 11-5. He only completed 52.8% of his passes for 3,762 yards. He had 24 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. So, I mean, you look at, I mean, he was a slinger, right? But he only averaged 52.8% of, passes. But once again, I mean, you start comparing like him and Daniel Jones and all that. And Daniel Jones, I mean, he had Jeremy Shockey. We got Darren Waller now, all right? But, I mean, Eli Manning had himself some weapons. He had Amani Toomer, he had Jeremy Shockey, and Plexico Burris. I mean, so we had some, and he had Tiki Barber. So he had himself some weapons. All right, so the first game of the season just goes to show you. I mean, the Giants. Let's see here. Points for they averaged 26.4 points per game. They were putting up some points. But I said, I mean, between Amani Toomer, Plaxico Burris, Jeremy Shockey, and Tiki Barber, and they started having all of their their offensive players, their linemen. They didn't quite have. They had Kareem McKenzie, Snee, O'Hara, Deal, but Luke Pettigrew, he was the one that they had Seibert, but he didn't start playing for the most part. I believe it was until 2006 or whatever it was. So they had Luke Pettigrew. He was the Giants' left tackle. Yeah, Seibert would start playing, I believe, some in 2006. But Luke Pettigrew was the Giants' left tackle, but for 2005 and in half of 2006, and Seibert would start taking over. But the Giants had out of the 5 guys that would wind up playing, so many consecutive games together. The Giants had 4 out of the 5. The Giants had Kareem McKenzie at the right tackle. They had Chris Snee at the right guard. They had Sean O'Hara at center, and then had David Deal who wound up playing left guard. But David Deal wound up playing, I believe, was guard and tackle. But this year, David Deal wound up playing left guard. In 2005 and 2006, David Deal was playing left guard. But then when Seibert came in, Seibert was, I think Seibert wound up playing the guard. Seibert was the left guard, and Deal kicked out into left tackle. So Deal played, a lot of games at guard and to actually David Deal, 2003, played 16 games for the Giants at right guard. 2004, he played 16 games for the Giants at right tackle. 2005 and 2006, he played 16 games each season for the Giants at left guard. Then 2007, 8, 9, 10, he played 4 straight seasons, almost every game at left tackle. So he played every position on the offensive line except for center. Talk about versatility. But I was going back to, the Giants, their Super Bowl run, their Super Bowl time from 2007 to 2009 or 10, whatever it was. They had the same offensive lineman playing every game was Deal, Seibert, O'Hara, Snee, and McKenzie. So the Giants had 4 out of the 5 guys. They didn't have Seibert. They had Seibert, but he didn't start playing yet. or playing a majority of the games yet. But I mean, the Giants, and then they had Shockey, they had Toomer, they had Burris, they had Tiki Barber and Eli Manning. They had a very good offensive line. So, then the pieces started coming together for the Giants. All right, so let's go here. The first game of the season, the Giants played at home against the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants would win 42-19. They put up some points there. The second game of the season, the Giants played Monday night, September 19th. They played in New Orleans against those Saints, and the Giants would wind up winning 27-10. Then the following week, the Giants this would start. Let me make sure before I start shoot my mouth off here. Where are we at here? Nope. No. Well, actually, this kind of continued, the horror that we had with Drew Brees, because we had always had a hard time beating Drew Brees. But anyway, the third game of the season, the Giants would go and they would play in San Diego against the Chargers. The Chargers would win 45-23. The Giants had a hard time beating Phillip Rivers, and they would always have a hard time beating Drew Brees. Obviously here when Drew Brees was with the Chargers, and then of course he wound up going to the Saints, and then Phillip Rivers took over. And once Phillip Rivers took over, Eli Manning never beat Phillip Rivers. He couldn't. Every time we played the Chargers, we couldn't beat the Chargers with Phillip Rivers. And of course, now here with Drew Brees, we couldn't beat the Chargers in 2005 either. But once Drew Brees went to the Saints, we had a hard time beating Drew Brees too, especially in the Superdome, right? But this game here, Drew Brees, what did he do here? He only had 191 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So I mean, nothing crazy. But LaDainian Tomlinson ran the ball 21 times for 192 yards. He was freaking Superman. So the Giants, lost the third game of the season. They played in San Diego. They lost 45-23. Then the Giants, the next week, the Giants on Sunday, October 2nd, they played against the St. Louis Rams, and they would win 44-24. Now, so the Giants are putting up some points. And now the Giants are 3-1. The Giants lost a tough one in Dallas the following week. They lost in overtime 16-13. Giants did, usually have a hard time with the Cowboys. The Cowboys were 4-2, so the Cowboys, at that time were very good. Jose Cortez kicked a 45-yard field goal for the Cowboys to win in overtime, 16-13. The Giants tied it up with 19 seconds to go. Jeremy Shockey caught a 24-yard pass from Eli Manning with 19 seconds to go. Jay Feely's extra point tied it up at 13-13, sending it into overtime. So the Giants lost a tough one. I mean, but all intents and purposes. I mean, let's see, the Giants had 270. Giants had 11 first downs. Cowboys had 25 first downs. So I mean, both teams had 4 turnovers. I mean, the Giants were fortunate to be in the game because they were outgained by 115 yards, and the Cowboys had 14 more first downs. So, but it was a tough loss overtime. So now the Giants are 3-2. Let's see. Then the following week at home, the Giants would beat the Denver Broncos 24-23. Then the Giants are 4-2. Now this one here, I do believe, it was a late score. Yes, 5 seconds left to go. Eli Manning threw a 2-yard pass to Amani Toomer. The Giants were down 23-17. They were driving. They got down to the 2-yard line. This one was kind of funny because Eli Manning, he's a slinger. You know what I mean? So I remember, if you watch this on YouTube, type in 2005 Giants fantastic finish or whatever you want to do against the Broncos. Well, I mean, the Broncos what were the Broncos? I mean, they were a good team. After this loss, the Broncos were 5-2. So the Broncos were 5-1 came into this game. But I always remember this one. So there was 5 seconds left when Amani Toomer caught the ball. But so whatever it was, 10, 12 seconds when the play started. So Eli Manning gets the ball at the 2-yard line. So he gets the ball, he drops back a little bit, and then I think the rush starts coming on. He drops back. I think he was like around the 20-yard line when he finally fired the ball into the end zone. Monty Toomer broke free. I think he was coming across, and he finally broke free. And Eli Manning, I think, was I guess the rush was on or something. He was just like dropping back. I thought he almost ran out of the stadium by the time he finally threw the ball. But anyway, he was probably back around the 15 to 20-yard line by the time he finally threw the ball. He just slung it into the end zone, and Monty Toomer was coming across, boom, caught it in the end zone. Place was going bananas. Giants won a close. Well, actually, after Jay Feely kicked the extra point, the Giants wound up winning 24-23. Very exciting game. Very, very exciting. But, of course, Jay Feely kicked us into a win here. But there's a game coming up in a little bit where he kicked us out of a game. Anyway, so the Giants were 4-2. Then the Giants at home beat the Washington Redskins 36-0. Now, I'm not sure. Let me punch something in here real fast. This was the game. Wellington Mara had passed away, the longtime owner for the Giants. He was with the Giants ever since since 1937. He was the son of the original owner, Tim Mara. So Wellington Mara passed away. He was the owner and president, and John Mara is his son. So now John Mara's one carries on. It's Steve Tisch and John Mara carry on now, but John Mara is Wellington Mara's son. So Wellington Mara passed away on October 25th. And the Giants played the Washington Redskins on October 30th, so 5 days later. And I remember Tiki Barber, when Wellington Mara was he was in his home. He was not doing well. He wanted to say goodbye, I guess, something like that, to all the players. And he requested Tiki Barber to, I want to see Tiki, you know what I mean? And Tiki was like, this is one thing that always touched Tiki, really, really touched him, was that, how he kind of felt, to some extent like part of family, you know what I mean? How Wellington, Tiki meant a lot to Wellington Mara. And so Tiki was kind of like, he wants to see me, and Tiki went over there and saw him. I think he said goodbye to him. He was either said goodbye to him when he was, or it was he saw him at the viewing or whatever it was. But I remember toward the end of Wellington Mara's life, I think he asked to see Tiki Barber, and Tiki Barber was kind of taken back on that one. But anyway, Wellington Mara passed away on October 25th. So 5 days later, the Giants played at home against the Redskins, and they played it for Wellington, and they would win 36-0. They opened up a can of whoop butt on the Washington Redskins, and they really, really dominated that. I mean, the defense held the Redskins at 7 first downs, 125 yards of total offense. I mean, they put on a show. 36-0. Wellington Mara was up there looking down, pumping his fist, I guess. He was. I'm sure he was fired up. The Giants did him good, without question. So after the Giants beat the Redskins 36-0, now they're 5-2. The Giants would go on the road and they would play in San Francisco, and they would win 24-6. Now the Giants are 6-2. Giants would lose a tough one at home to the Minnesota Vikings the following week. They lost 24-21. I mean, the Giants had. Let's see here. I mean, this one. Oh yeah, this game. Some games I can't even get stuff out of my mouth. The Giants had 405 yards of offense. The Vikings had 137 yards. The Giants had almost 300 more yards than the Vikings did. The Giants had 25 first downs. Vikings had 11. Giants had 5 turnovers. The Giants were just walking up and down the field all game long. The Giants were by far the better team. But the Giants lost 24-21. Darren Sharper picked off a pass from Eli Manning, ran it back 92 yards for a touchdown. Then then Corn Robinson took the initial kickoff of the second half back 86 yards for a touchdown. Then Mewaldy Moore had a 71-yard punt return for a touchdown. They scored 3 touchdowns. There was not one offensive touchdown. There was a defensive touchdown and 2 special teams touchdowns. Watching this game on TV, I just couldn't believe it how overmatched the Vikings were. But the only way they could win, they had to run a kickoff back, a punt return back, and I remember that Darren Sharper, Eli Manning, I think was like looking down, whoever it was. Darren Sharper, fantastic defensive back, just jumped the route 92 yards back the other. I mean, that was like a 10-point play at least. Gave the Vikings 7 points and took at least 3 points off the board for the Giants. It was 7 points, a 10-point swing on that one play right there. But I mean, I remember watching this game on TV, and I just couldn't, like, how overmatched the Vikings were. But our turnovers and poor special teams play allowed the Vikings to win, and they should never have won that game. So the Giants, after they lost a tough one, they wound up 6-3. Following week on the road in Philadelphia, the Giants would win against the Eagles. I'm sorry, at home. The Giants beat the Eagles at home 27-17. So now the Giants are 7-3. Now here's the Jay Feely game here. This one, I was gonna go back and look and all of that. This season here, between that Minnesota game and this freaking Seattle Seahawks game, on Sunday, November 27th, the Giants traveled to Seattle. Seattle was a very good team. The Giants were losing overtime, 24-21. Jay Feely missed 3 field goals. Seattle was a very good team. The Giants were 7-3 going in. Seattle was 8-2. It's a battle of pretty much the best 2 teams in the NFC. The Giants should have won the game. Jay Feely missed 3 field goals. I think he missed like 2 field goals in the final 2 minutes of the game or something like that. He missed another field goal in overtime. He missed it was just. I couldn't believe it. And then finally, of course, what it wound up being is this, we just kept missing field goal. We missed 3 field goals. And he just started choking. That's what he did. And of course, you just miss field goal after field goal after field goal, and you keep Seattle around long enough. And of course, Josh Brown kicked a 36-yard field goal with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in overtime. And Seattle won 24-21 when the Giants should have won the football game. The Giants would have, had so many chances. The Giants had almost 500 yards of offense. They had 490 yards of offense. Seattle had 355. Giants had 25 first downs. Seattle had 17. The Giants only had 1 turnover. Giants had 16 penalties. 16 penalties. The Giants were 8 out of 19 on third down conversions. I mean, the Giants had the ball for almost 40 minutes. The Giants outplayed Seattle. It's just Jay Feely. Jay Choke Feely blew the game for the Giants. Giants should have 3 field goals in the final few minutes of the fourth quarter, I think, and in overtime. He missed 3 field goals, makeable field goals. Choke. Giants should have won that game. The Giants at this point should have been 9-2 with this. I mean, just. So then the Giants went on a little bit of a run here. The Giants would host the Dallas Cowboys the following week, and the Giants would win 17-10. Now the Giants are 8-4. Giants had another good game. They played on the road in Philadelphia against the Eagles, and they would win in overtime 26-23. Jay Feely, would at least redeem himself, right? He kicked a 36-yard field goal in overtime with 3 minutes and 55 seconds left to go, and the Giants would prevail 26-23 in some hostile territory, right? Jay Feely, what do you kick? He kicked 1, 2, 3. He kicked 4 field goals, so he kind of redeemed himself a little bit. But the tough win, it's always tough against the Eagles. I don't care. The Eagles were 5-8. The Eagles didn't have a very good season that year. But the Eagles were the cream of the crop for quite a few years, and they had a little bit of a down year here. But it doesn't matter what the Eagles' record is; it's always a hard time to win against the Eagles, especially in Philadelphia. So the Giants would win. Then now their record is 9-4. The following week, the Kansas City Chiefs would come to town. The Giants would beat them 27-17. Now the Giants are 10-4. Giants went on the road, and then I guess the Redskins got a little bit of revenge. They would beat the Giants 35-20. So that was on Saturday, December 24th. Obviously, the day before Christmas, the Redskins would win 35-20. So now the Giants are 10-5. The Giants would finish up the season on the road playing against the Raiders, and the Giants would win 30-21. So now the Giants finished the season 11-5. I mean, especially after they were 6-10 the season before. To go from 6-10 to 11-5, very, very impressive. All right, but then I said the playoff game they had. All right, well let's go. What does we'll go over the playoff game in just a little bit here. 2005 Wikipedia, the NFL season. The 2005 NFL season was the 86th regular season in the history of the National Football League. Regular season play was held from September 8th to January 1st. The regular season also saw the first ever regular season game played outside of the United States, as well as the New Orleans Saints being forced to play elsewhere due to damage to the Superdome and the entire New Orleans area by Hurricane Katrina. She was not very nice, let me tell you that much. The playoffs began on January 7th. The New England Patriots' streak of 10 consecutive playoff wins and a chance at a third straight Super Bowl title was ended in a divisional playoff round by the Denver Broncos. And eventually the NFL title was won by the Pittsburgh Steelers, who defeated the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Now, it's not, Seattle was that good. They went to the Super Bowl. The Giants went into Seattle, outplayed Seattle. If Jay Feely could have kicked a field goal, the Giants would have beat Seattle. So, the Giants were a good team that year. This also marked the first time that a 6-seeded team, who by the nature of their seeding would play every game on the road, would advance to and win the Super Bowl. The season formally concluded with the Pro Bowl, the league's all-star game at Aloha Stadium in Honolulu, Hawaii, on February 12th. This was also the final full season for Paul Tagliabue as the commissioner. All right, so let's go to the AFC here. All right, New England Patriots record of 10-6 won the AFC East. The Cincinnati Bengals with a record of 11-5. They won the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers were a wild card team with a record of 11-5, but Cincinnati finished ahead of Pittsburgh on a better divisional record. Cincinnati was 5-1. Pittsburgh was 4-2 in the division. The AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts were with a record of 14-2, and the Jacksonville Jaguars got the other wild card with the record of 12-4. The AFC West, the Denver Broncos with a record of 13-3, they won. So they had some good teams there. You got the Patriots were good, but then you had two teams, the Bengals and the Steelers were both 11-5. Jaguars were 12-4. The Indianapolis Colts were 14-2. The Denver Broncos were 13-3. So they had some good teams in the AFC. So in the playoffs, Pittsburgh would beat Cincinnati 31-17. And New England Patriots would beat Jacksonville 28-3. Now, I think that this game here was when when Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati 31-17. I think, let's see if you're going to pop up here. Let's see, 38 now. Let's see here. I think that's when Carson Palmer got injured. I think against the we have the recap here. Nope. I think Carson Palmer might have got injured in this game here. Yeah. in the playoff game. Early in the game, disaster struck for the Bengals when Steeler lineman Kimo von Oelhoffen hit Bengals quarterback Carson Palmer's knee, resulting in a tear of Palmer's anterior cruciate ligament, or an ACL tear. Backup quarterback John Kitna took over and did very well, giving Cincinnati leads of 10-0 and 17-7 at points of the game. All seemed well for the Bengals until the Steelers came back with 24 unanswered points and upset the Bengals with the final score of 31-17. So the Bengals were up 17-7. The Steelers scored 24 straight points. So, but Carson Palmer in that game got injured early on. The guy fell into his knee and he tore his ACL. So that's one of the big reasons why. One of the reasons why the Bengals wound up losing that game. So the Steelers beat the Bengals and the Patriots beat the Jaguars. So in the divisional round, Pittsburgh wound up beating the Colts 21-18. And let's see here. In Denver, the Broncos wound up beating New England 27-13. They said that New England won 10 straight playoff games. Wow. So that set up the Pittsburgh Indianapolis game was a very, very exciting game. Very exciting game. That was the championship game between Pittsburgh and Denver was held at Mile High Stadium. Pittsburgh wound up winning 34-17 over Denver, sending Pittsburgh to the Super Bowl. So in the NFC, the Giants won. So the Giants wound up winning with a record of 11-5. The Redskins got in with a wild card of 10-6. When the Redskins beat the Giants, toward the end of the season, the Redskins were a good team. They were 10-6. Very good team. So in the NFC North, the Bears won with a record of 11-5. The NFC South, Tampa Bay won with a record of 11-5, and Carolina got in as a wild card with a record of 11-5 as well. But Tampa Bay finished ahead of Carolina because of a better divisional record. Once again, Tampa Bay was 5-1. Carolina, with their division record, was 4-2. That's why Tampa Bay won the division, and Carolina was a playoff wild card team. Then the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks, with a record of 13-3, they won the NFC West. So in the playoffs, right? First round, you got Tampa Bay lost to Washington 17-10. Then, of course, in the Giants game, Giants at home, they lost 23-0 to Carolina. It was just, I just couldn't believe it. Was just, the Giants had 132 yards of offense. They had 5 turnovers. They had 9 first downs. Carolina had 23 first downs. It was just, I couldn't, it was just, there was the 3 games during the season: the loss against Minnesota, the loss against Seattle, and this game here against the Panthers. I was just like, when are we going to start moving the ball? When are we going to complete when are we going to get a first down? It was just unbelievable. We couldn't do anything against Carolina. Carolina had 23 first downs. The Giants had 9. The Giants had ran the ball 13 times for 41 yards. The Giants had 113 yards passing. Carolina ran the ball 45 times for 223 yards. Giants dropped back to pass. Well, I guess maybe it wound up being 22 times, and they got sacked 4 times. Giants had 91 yards total net passing yards. The Giants had 132 yards of offense. 132. They're averaging almost 27 points a game, and they had 132 yards of offense here. The Giants had 5 turnovers. Carolina had none. The only bright spot, the Giants only had 2 penalties all game. I mean, it was just, the Giants had the ball for 17 minutes. Carolina had the ball for almost 43 minutes. 43 minutes. Giants had it for 17 minutes and 15 seconds. I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe it. I just, what, I mean, said Jeremy Shockey said after the game, he's like, Carolina seemed to know everything we were going to do. Every play, anything, whatever we were doing, they knew. I don't know if that's true or not or whatever, but if you look at the game, yeah, because the Giants could not do anything, and not only so much that, it was the 5 turnovers too, which is crushing, absolutely crushing. But the Giants, was just unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it's like, you know, some of these games I have a hard time just even talking about. It was just that bad. It was just that bad. So in a divisional round, Carolina would go on the road and play against Chicago in Soldier Field. Carolina would win 29-21. But in Seattle at home would beat the Redskins 20-10. So in the championship game, Seattle whooped up on Carolina 34-14. So making the Super Bowl between Pittsburgh and Seattle. And it was a good game. Some things went against Seattle. I don't want to spend too long talking about all the couple of things that kind of went against Seattle. They had some bad luck, I guess, on their side. But Seattle started with 22 seconds left to go in the first quarter. Josh Brown kicked a 47-yard field goal. Seattle was winning 3-0. With a minute 55 left to go in the first half, Ben Roethlisberger had a 1-yard touchdown run. So the Steelers were up 7-3 at the half. Willie Parker had a 75-yard touchdown run. Basically, at the beginning, I guess it was the second, after the kickoff, the second play of the drive. In the second half, Willie Parker ran 75 yards for a touchdown run to extend the lead to 14-3. Seattle would come back with 6 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in the third quarter. Jeremy Stevens had a 16-yard touchdown reception from Matt Hasselbeck. And so Pittsburgh was winning 14-10 going into the fourth quarter. So, Pittsburgh finally, Hines Ward, a trick play, completed a 43-yard touchdown pass to Antoine Randall L. to put the Steelers up 21-10, and the Seahawks didn't score again. But, going into the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh was up 14-10. Seattle had a few things go kind of against them in a way. So, I mean, the score could have been a little closer or whatever. But, in the end, Pittsburgh wound up winning. Pittsburgh had a very good season. So did Seattle. They had a very good season as well, too. Let's see. What do we got here? There we go. Seattle had 20 first downs. Pittsburgh had 14. What do we got here? Seattle had 396 yards total of offense. Pittsburgh had 339. Pittsburgh had 2 turnovers. Seattle only had 1. Seattle had the ball for 33 minutes. Pittsburgh had it for 27. So, I mean, it was a close game. So, I mean, you figure like almost halfway into the fourth quarter or 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, it's still 14-10. That one touchdown on a trick play, right? I mean, because you figure that trick play, if instead of it being a touchdown, if they covered it and they forced them to kick a field goal, it would have been 17-10. Seattle still would have had a shot, but they, going down 21-10 and put them down obviously by 2 scores with about 8 minutes or so to go in the game, and Seattle was not able to score again. So, but I mean, it was a low scoring game, but it was very exciting, and Pittsburgh wound up, prevailing, right? But all in all, you got to be, it was a very, very good season for the New York Giants. 2004, right? They were 6-10. 2005, the very next season, 11-5. They win the division. They go to the playoffs. They lost, but it was a very, very good, very good season for the Giants. But I said this is the first of 4 consecutive seasons that the New York Giants would go to the playoffs. So that pretty much wraps up the 2005 season for the New York Giants. Very successful. 11-5. They win the NFC East, and they go to the playoffs. And 2006 would be another successful season for the Giants. So that pretty much wraps up the 2005 season. I'll be back again tonight with the 2006 season for the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 82nd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.